kindly tell us what's the really fundamental difference between Western approaches towards deciphering the nature of reality and Eastern, the Vedic tradition, very briefly, maybe then we can start. You already said quite a lot of things in our last discussion a few months back, but just to recapitulate, maybe we can start with that.
There are many differences. One basic difference is that everything in Vedic philosophy is studied in terms of qualities. So Prakriti is three gunas, three qualities, and soul is also three qualities. It's called Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, and God is many qualities. So anyway, everything is studied in terms of qualities in Vedic philosophy, and in modern science, everything is studied as quantities. And this difference between quality and quantity is very, very significant because quality logic is a non-binary logic. And if we employ quality logic, then we get into non-binary categories like neither X nor not X, or both X and not X. Similarly, when we employ qualities, then we get a hierarchical conception of truth, in which something is more true than something else. Like there is a lower truth and there is a higher truth. And the lower and the higher truth is more true than the lower truth. Whereas in the quantitative or binary conception, all truths are equally true. Okay. Whereas, so there are many differences like that, but basic difference, if you want to understand in one word, it's quality versus quantity. And then as a result of that, there are many, many differences.
Yes, thank you very much. It really sums up all your things that you described last time also. So thank you so much. So just to get started, maybe the first question that came is it's regarding Platonic world. So Plato said different forms exist. Really, the eternal substance, essence of any changing reality in this world. In your talks or in your books also, you quite often talk about the universals, the concepts. So in the Platonic world, the form is existent in a different world, totally disconnected from this physical world. But instead, in the Aristotelian picture, so they are embedded in the same physical realm. So both of the aspects, they really do not cater the need in some sense. And regarding Plato, we know there is this Plato's problem. How does one really access something that is transcendental? Which is not really part of this nature. So could you kindly say how really Vedic picture gives a broader perspective, while maybe it reconciles both Aristotelian and Platonic worldviews? How does it really make a bigger picture, including both the knots and that is there? So
yeah, in Greek philosophy, even when there's Platonism or Aristotelianism, basically there are two categories. One is called form, the other is called substance. And this distinction between form and substance is something that Greeks could never reconcile. For example, they would say, let's say, a cube is a form, okay, and earth is a substance, okay, but earth itself may have properties like hardness, or smell, things like that. So what is hardness? Okay, hardness is also a form.
Mm.
Smell is also a form,
Right.
right? So whatever you call substance also becomes many forms.
Mm.
And this is what Sankhya philosophy is,
Mm.
right? We say that, so Greeks recognized, for example, earth, water, fire, and air as four substances.
Mm.
And these substances, they call them substances, but these things are considered to have properties, which is called tanamatra. Like earth has smell and taste and touch and sight and sound, whereas water has, everything except smell, and fire has sound and touch and sight and so on. So these are all forms. So essentially, one fundamental difference between Greek philosophy and Vedic philosophy is that they have form and substance, but we don't have any substance. There is only form. Okay. And there is an original form, then there is a derived form. From there is more forms are derived through a hierarchy of derivations of forms.
Mm.
For example, red is a form. Okay, then color is a form. The color form contains the red form. The red form is derived from the color form. Similarly, seeing is a form. Sight is a form. And the color form is derived from the sight form. So even what they considered substances, which is earth, water, fire, air, or whatever you want to call that, solid, liquid, gas, whatever you want to call, if you call it liquid, so for example, fluidity will be a property and you can measure it in so many ways, everything will become form. So there is actually no substance. It's only forms.
Mm.
Okay. And this considerably simplifies all the subsequent ontological problems that are faced, Western philosophy. They do not exist in Vedic philosophy because everything is simply a derivation of a previous form into a new form.
Mm.
So Krishna is the original form.
Right.
And from Krishna, there are three forms: marginal energy, internal energy, external energy. External energy has, many derivations, and it goes through a succession of derivations, which are called Matattva, then Ahankara, then Buddhi, then Manas, then Indriya, then Taramatra, then Bhuta, and then Bhuta also has 5 levels of derivations.
Right.
So there is no substance at all. Okay, there is only form.
So,
Does that answer your question?
yeah. So, can I ask
Yeah,
something
keep
about that?
going. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you see Aristotelian picture. So he was kind of comfortable with, not comfortable with a transcendent world, where the forms really reside. I mean, but Plato was kind of convinced that the original forms, whatever they exist in a separate world. So,
Yeah, so you have to understand, see, Western philosophy has a dialectical nature, in the sense that the previous guy creates a problem,
mhm,
okay? And the next guy tries to solve that particular problem. So to understand Plato, you have to understand Socrates,
right.
okay? What was Socrates doing? He started by asking people, questions about how to define words. For example, beauty is a word. Okay.
Mhm,
So he said, can you define beauty? And people could not give a definition of beauty,
mhm,
because whatever definition they will give, you know, uh, he will find a contradiction to that definition, and it will be that definition will not be applicable in all cases of beauty. Okay. For example, you can say that, perfectly symmetrical face is very beautiful. Okay, then somebody can say, well, if they have dimple on the face, it's more beautiful. Okay, so then you can say, okay, if the whole, how many dimples should be there? Well, if you generally two dimples, but if it's dimple only on one side and mole on the other side, it is even more beautiful. So they could not give any definition, and you can still try to give any universalist definition of anything, and you would not get a proper definition. Okay, this is one fundamental problem of universalism. And added to that problem is in different contexts, like for example, you can have a slightly circular shape and a slightly squarish shape, which may not be exactly a square. And you ask them, what is it? In comparison to that, in comparison to a triangle, you may say it is circular. But in comparison to a perfect square, you may say it is actually, rectangular. So there are numerous problems in giving definitions, and Socrates actually spent his entire life doing these debates. And his conclusion was he could not get any definition. Okay, so the beginning of his life is about, he says, an unexamined life is not worth living. And before he died, basically he said, if there's one thing I know for sure, it is that I know nothing. Okay. So when Plato arrived at this, situation created by Socrates, where you are not able to define anything, okay, then he said, let's not worry about trying to define all these things. Let's say there is a world, there is another world, you can call it transcendental and all. That transcendental doesn't mean what it means in our philosophy, but another world beyond this world. And that has all these forms. Why did he do that? This is done so that you can escape the problem of trying to define anything.
Right.
Okay. The idea is that maybe we have some intuitive grasp of those things. Let's not try to define it. Let's try to grasp it through intuition. Or maybe we will, go to that world sometime and then we will understand. And his idea was that this world is an imperfect reflection of that world. Okay. Which also means that maybe there is no perfect beauty in this world. Okay, maybe there is no perfect justice in this world. Maybe there is no perfect truth in this world. So instead of trying to define what you mean by beauty, truth, justice, all these things, let's just leave it to the other world and say that this world is an imperfect reflection. Okay. So once this problem has been created of the other world, then Aristotle comes, and it's a very unsatisfactory solution because, as you said, we cannot grasp the other world of Platonic forms. We don't have a definition because of Socratic problem. Okay. So Aristotle comes and says, well, let's divide all the forms into two categories. Okay. There are real world forms and there are practical forms. Okay. By practical, what he means is things like beauty and justice and righteousness, morality. All these things are practical issues. And then there are real world things, which basically form means shape. Okay. And that shape is essentially can be reduced to geometry. Right. Okay. So so Aristotelian philosophy is called hylomorphism, where he says there is substance and there is form, but that form has got nothing to do with Platonic forms. Okay, this is one key distinction that one has to understand. His form simply means geometric shape. Okay, so Greeks were going on with this idea about there is substance and form. Substance is earth, water, fire, air, and then shapes are geometrical shapes like triangle and all these things. And Plato had done some work on Platonic solids, like there is square, and there are 5 Platonic solids, and he was trying to give them some meanings and things like that. And after Aristotle, and so Aristotle essentially led the Greeks onto a path where they will simply not focus on Socratic debates.
Mm.
Okay, number one, which were becoming pointless.
Mm.
Number two, they will not focus on transcendence also.
Mm. Right.
Okay, so what will they do? The answer was democracy.
Right.
Okay, so what is beauty? Okay, don't worry about it. We will vote and we will decide what is beauty. What is justice? We will vote and we will decide. What is morality? Answer to every practical problem is democracy.
Mm.
Okay? Answer to every other real world problem which you can reduce to geometry is science.
Mm.
So Greeks had this combination of democracy and science. Okay,
Right.
and then while this Greek thing was going on, then Romans come along. Okay,
Mm.
and Roman rulers have a big problem with democracy because they are emperors.
Right.
Okay, so if you give democracy and say let ordinary people decide what is beauty, what is justice, what is morality, then what is the king going to do?
Mm.
So king becomes irrelevant. Okay,
Mm.
therefore they invented Christianity,
Mm.
or whatever version of invented, created, took things from here and there. They basically concocted a system called Christianity, taking rest of the things from Aristotle.
Probably comes Constantine was the guy who.
Yes, yeah. So what is the purpose of Christianity? It is to deal with all the questions that Aristotle had called practical problems, which means beauty, justice, morality, what is good, what is right, all these things. This will come from religion, which will be authored or controlled by the emperor, at least in some way or the other. And if some question is not answered through the Bible, the emperor is the representative of God on earth and he will make the decision for you.
Mm. Right.
Right? So this is the basic synopsis of and then this solution continued for thousands of years.
Mm.
And people were actually even Aristotle had created the problem of the original unmoved mover.
Mm.
Some unmoved mover creates them, and this basically the philosophy was paralyzed. And after Romans created this, system that philosophy and religion were separate. Philosophy, which is literally synonymous with science for them, is dealing with the real world, and then the practical world is basically religion. So this science religion divide has existed from the origin, from the time essentially of
Aristotle.
Platonism.
Yeah.
Even from Platonism, it's other world versus this world,
Yeah. There is a
or
divide.
it is practical problem versus the world problem, or human problem versus the world problem, or it is the scientific problem versus the religious problem. Then in Cartesian philosophy it becomes the mind versus the body. Okay, and in Protestant Reformation and things like that. So this problem has never been solved.
Mm.
It
Right.
has always existed. You can keep reformulating the problem. You can call it soul body problem, mind body problem, other world, this world problem, form versus substance problem. With whatever shape and form you give, it's essentially the same problem.
Mm.
Okay. And we have in Vedic philosophy, we reject the problem itself. We say there is no duality in this sense. There is no substance and form. There is only form. Okay.
Okay.
Krishna is not a substance. Krishna is a form.
Mm.
And everything else is part of that form.
So in our traditional notion for Vedic philosophy, what do we call for forms?
Rupa is there. So form, what I am trying to say is this word form is a Western word.
Yeah.
Okay. It is understood only in contrast to substance.
Mm.
But the Vedic word is guna, qualities.
Mm.
Right. So So basically, what is form? It is, it is these qualities, and like, or we can also say vigraha, like Sachidananda vigraha, Nadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. So there is a vigraha, right? Or there is a form. Or we can say Shad Ujjwala Vigrahasya, right? So there is Shad Ujjwal means the Vigrahasya, the form of 6 qualities.
Right.
So there is only form.
Yeah.
So what is God? God is not a substance. And everything else is part of God, which means that is also not a substance.
Right.
Okay. So either you say that God is a substance, which means it is like wood, or and of course, even we say wood, that is also not substance for us. That is also forms, because what is wood? It is some hardness, it is some shape, it is some color, it is some roughness. Okay. The combination of these qualities is what we call wood. Or similarly, there will be stone and other. So there is a certain combination of these properties, that is wood and there is stone. So everything is form. There is no substance.
Yeah. Can I ask something here?
Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah. So we see physically things change. So like God, when we talk about God, we have a perception that it's kind of eternal. God is eternal. He used to be, he should be, and there should not be any change. I think the reason why Plato invented this idea of there is a form, probably is looking at changing reality in this world. So maybe there is something background reality that is kind of preserved, uh, irrespective of changes, irrespective of different kinds of living entities, different kinds of manifestations of material objects. So, so in our, in our Vedic understanding, so so this, if everything is the same as the same form, the way we are talking about now. So, but still we see there are changes. I mean, how do we really account for, or how do you describe the changes that is happening to different objects around us?
Yes, so that change is simply manifestation and unmanifestation. Okay.
Of what?
Of anything. So for example, like like you say, wood is there. I give this example: wood is there, and then there can be fire from that wood. Okay. So fire is a manifestation of wood. This is the whole Sankhya framework, which is called Satkaryavad. Karya means effect, Sat means eternal. The effect is eternally present in the cause. Okay. So the material world is an effect of God.
Right.
And the material world is eternally present in God. The Jivatma, or the soul, is an effect of God, and that effect is, or it's a karya, And so there's karya and karan. Karan is cause, karya is effect. Okay, so karya and karan. So the karya is effect, eternally present in the cause. The material world is eternally present in God. Similarly, whatever objects you see are eternally present in God. Now, what is change? Change, the way they are present in God is this whole philosophy about there are 3 potentialities. Okay, there are Satchit Anand. For example, in this, for that we have to understand how experience is created. The soul is also 3 potentialities, but it may not have an experience. Like when you go to deep sleep, okay, the 3 potentialities are separated. Okay. When you are dreaming or when you are waking up, these 3 potentialities are combined.
So what is so special about this 3? It could have been just a way of classification.
No, no, it's not classification. There is a fundamental importance to each of these things, which is what I was trying to describe or discuss in the earlier one.
Yeah.
So everything comes down to understand the big picture now, right now.
Mm-hmm.
There are these three potentialities, and everything you perceive is a combination of these three potentialities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
And when these potentialities separate, then there is this reality disappears.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So material reality is eternal in one sense, in the sense that the potentialities are eternal.
Yeah. Abhyakta
But,
Rupa.
but the combination of those potentialities is not eternal.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we need to say that the world is illusory, not really the illusion.
No, no, no. Don't go there so fast. Okay. Illusory and all, it is illusory and it is not illusory. Okay. Whatever, see, let's say, if I give you three things, okay, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, or Satchit, Anand, whatever those A, B, C, three things are there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
On their own, neither A nor B nor C can be known.
Mm-hmm. Right.
A, B, and C have to be combined to know A, B, and C simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when they are combined, they are always in a dominant subordinate structure. Okay. A is first, B is second, C is third, or C is first, B is second, A is third. One of these combinations, some combination is there. That is why it is said that when Prakriti is in the balanced state, there is no world. Okay. So there is a balanced state, which is also a separated state. These three modes are separated and then they are combined. So in Pradhana, they will say the modes are separated. In Prakriti, they will say the modes are combined. Then manifestation will start, which will say that Mahatattva is dominant in Sattva Guna. Then Ahankara is dominant in Tamo Guna. Then Buddhi is dominant in Rajoguna. Again, Manas is dominant in Sattva Guna. So like that, they will keep going. Dominant, subordinate, dominant, switching the patterns up and down of the modes. And then there is a combination which is balanced state, and then there is a state in which they are separated. Okay, so this is a very simple description of how the world is created. There are three things. Okay, what those three things are is a very deep subject and topic, and it's if you just understand those three things, you don't need to know anything else, right? This is what Krishna discusses the whole. See, there is a whole chapter on three modes of material nature. Okay. There's a whole chapter on out of the 18 chapters on three modes of material nature. What is Sattva? How to recognize what is Sattva, what is Rajas, what is Tamas, and things like that. But so these three things are there, they are separated, then they are combined and balanced, then they are combined and unbalanced or imbalanced. Okay, dominant and subordinate. And the world appears simply by this combination. Okay, so let us say if everything is combined in the world, let's talk about energy in the modern scientific sense. Okay, by the combination, infinite energy can be created. And by the separation, all this energy can disappear in a moment.
Right.
So energy is not conserved. Because it is not conserved, it is sometimes created, sometimes destroyed, sometimes preserved. So we use the word creation, maintenance, destruction, which is called change. Okay. But what is actually happening under the hood is the created thing is simply the combination of modes. Destroyed things is the separation of the modes. And maintenance thing is that these modes are combined, but they are switching in their priorities. Higher Sattva-guna is like, for example, my body is maintained. But what happens in the morning Sattva-guna, afternoon Rajaguna, night Tamoguna, again Sattva-guna, this is maintenance. Right. Maintenance doesn't mean fixed. Maintenance means it is combined and it is oscillating.
Constant activity.
Constant activity is there. That is also called change. Okay. So material nature is described to have 5 kinds of activities, or you can call that change. Creation, we talked about, new combination is created. Destruction, they are separated. Maintenance, they are going up and down. Okay. Then there is revelation and hiding. 2 more activities are there, which means you may become aware of that, you may not become aware of that, even though there is a possibility. So for example, a book may be there. Think of it as a book. Okay. Of the world is a book, and the book may exist and you may read the book. When you read the book, okay, a possibility has become probable, or a possibility has become likely. You understand?
How does that happen?
That is also a process. We can't discuss everything, but this is the process. Right. So why change is happening? These are simply because there are many possibilities. Some possibility becomes more probable, which is again a method of going dominant. It is nothing but just becoming dominant. For example, this problem comes in quantum mechanics, since you were asking in some other context. What is happening in quantum mechanics is you have the combination of all these modes. Okay. And these modes are becoming dominant and subordinate. When something becomes dominant, a click happens. You see a click. All right. Yeah. And then it goes subordinate, then you don't have it. So you get observation and you don't get observation. Why? Because it's the constant cycling of the modes. And because there is a certain mixture of the modes, therefore you have overall probabilities that this event will happen. Okay. Right. So you are getting probabilities, but what you are not getting is the sequence in which it will go dominant and subordinate. You understand?
So can someone really understand that sequence? I mean,
yes, it can be understood. There is a very the problem of that sequence is that it's a hierarchical structure. Okay.
Means
it's a hierarchical structure means just like you have subtle and gross. We just talk about 2, but there are many levels. Right. Even in the Bhuta, there is there are 5 levels. Right. Even in each of these 5 levels, there are numerous levels. For example, you have food. Okay. You have food. So when you are given food on the table, you might smell it first. And then you might see it, and then you might taste it. And then you might touch it and then taste it. It's like, or it is possible that you will see it first, then you will touch it, and then you will smell it and then taste it. Or it is possible that you see it and then you taste it and then you smell it. This is the motion of the modes. Okay, food is the same. Which one did you taste it first? Did you smell it first? Did you touch it first? Did you see it first? And within seeing also, you can see the color first. You can see the shape first. You can see the size first. Within touch also, you can see the food is hard or soft. Is it hot or cold? Is it rough or smooth? There are many qualities that we are constantly perceiving, and it is happening so fast that we just give you food and then you say, oh, I have smelt it, I've tasted it, I've seen it. But in that moment of perception of food, okay, millions of perceptions have happened, trillions basically. That individual atom of taste, touch, smell, sound, sight, shape, color, hardness, softness, heat, all these things, these are these are atoms. But you never perceive all the atoms simultaneously. You perceive them one by one by one. Okay?
Is it really one by one, or
Yes. It is always one by one, because our consciousness cannot perceive more than one thing at one time.
sorry, this aspect I couldn't follow. Why is that?
Because our consciousness cannot perceive more than one thing at one time.
Yeah, I couldn't follow that. Why is that?
Why is that? Because consciousness has to move. This body that you think is a inverted tree. Okay,
Yeah.
there is ego, there is intelligence, buddhi, senses. Below the Tanamatra, then Bhuta. It's a huge, enormous, humongous tree. And the soul is constant, consciousness is moving. Taste, go up, come down. Smell, go up, come down. Touch, go up, come down. Shape, go up, come down. Size. It is constantly moving up and down.
The analogy of the tree and the nodes and the child.
Yes, yes. So the soul is, the tree is fixed. And the soul is moving up and down, up and down, up and down. And what happens when every time it connects with one of the nodes, that is a detection. That is a measurement event. That is a conscious event.
Okay.
Why you cannot experience more than one thing at one time? Because every sensation is in a different location in space.
Yeah.
And the soul is always in one location.
Mm.
So what you call motion or change is this consciousness moving in a fixed material reality, nearly fixed. Okay. It can also, material reality can also expand. As I said, three modes can combine and the universe can be created. They can separate and the universe can be dissolved. Okay. But while it is in the maintenance state, also it is going up and down, up and down. And within that, this consciousness is moving.
Yeah.
Right. So, for example, in your body, you will get a hungry body. Let's say around lunchtime, noon, you will get hungry body automatically. Okay. That is because the automatic cycling of modes. But while you're getting hungry body, you may be talking to someone else. Okay. There may be some background noise. So what is happening? The consciousness is sometimes focusing, oh, I am hungry. Then, oh, I am talking to this person and he's saying this. Then there is some background noise. What is happening? Consciousness is moving. Okay. So if you meditate nicely, if you chant Hare Krishna very nicely, okay, fix your consciousness, which is Krishna calls Sthita Prajna.
Yeah, exactly.
Fixed consciousness. Fixed means not moving. Sthita means situated, fixed. Why is it fixed? Because Deino asmin yatha dehe kaumaram yovanam jara tatha dehantar prapte dhiras tatranam. It is always moving. It was always moving. It is moving from one body to the other body, from hungry body to tired body to lusty body to sleepy body to childhood body to youth body. It is always moving, and within every state, every moment, even if there is food in front of you, it is moving from taste to touch to smell to sound, sight. Within that, there are so many sensations. It is moving extremely fast.
But for the case of Sthita Pragya also, he also experiences a wide variety of experiences. So what does it really that?
No, he can experience, but the Sthita Prajna means he is fixed. He has to fix himself. Not constantly moving, like if you are sitting and chanting and thoughts are coming, oh, he said this, she said that, I will go there, I will do this. This is not Sthita Prajna.
Right.
This is disturbed mind.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, it may be less disturbed, it may be more disturbed, but it is disturbed.
Yeah.
because it is not happening out in your control, it is happening outside your control. So sthita prajna means when you sit down and chant, just concentrate. When you concentrate, slowly things will disappear. Okay, this movement will slow down. Some of it will stop, some of it will still happen, but even if it is happening, it will happen slowly. Then you can see it goes one by one, by one, by one, by one. From taste to touch to smell to sound to sight, you can see that. You have to practice. It is experiential verification. Then you can understand quantum mechanics like this.
Yeah, it's little difficult for me.
Yeah, you can understand simply by chanting. What is happening in quantum mechanics? Electron, it's clicking, clicking, clicking. What is those clicks? Each click, some click is touch, some click is sound, some click is sight, some click is form, some click is shape. So it's click, 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 click. You cannot make out from the clicks what it is doing. Because everything is, quantum mechanics has made everything physical.
Exactly.
But those detectors are not just those physical things. Okay.
Right.
This movement in space is a semantic space. I keep explaining, but I don't get it across to people. It is the movement of consciousness. Think of all the detectors as all the possible sensations. Some are touch, some are smell, some are sight, some are sound, taste. And there are many, many divisions inside that. So click, 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 click. It's moving. Taste, touch, smell, sound, sight. Taste, touch, smell, sound, sight, and it's moving very, very fast. And there's a probability for each person. There is a different probability. Some people will focus more on touch, touchy-feely people. Some people like to see more things. Some people like to taste more. Some people like, so there are different probabilities for each individual.
Right.
Also, okay. So even observer involvement is there in perception, which means everybody is not going to focus on shape and color. Some people will be more touchy-feely. So for them, the probability of experience is different. Okay. So whatever you call change, okay, there are two types of change. Let me summarize that. One type of change is modes of nature are combining and the world is expanding. Okay, modes of nature are separating and things are disappearing. This is one type of change. And the second type of change is the modes are going up and down. Okay, so these three things are creation, maintenance, destruction. Then there is revelation and hiding, which is because of the soul moving things. If taste is there, but I don't perceive it, is it there or not? It is there, but it is not revealed to me. It is hidden from me. So while I'm tasting, I'm not smelling. So smell is there, but it is not revealed to me. It is hidden. That movement of the soul is also forced by matter. It is not that I am voluntarily moving from this thing. It is also forced by material energy.
Even transmigration.
Yes, that transmigration is also forced. So these five things, just understand: creation, maintenance, destruction, revelation, hiding.
Okay.
Extremely complicated, but all change is essentially these five things. There is no motion per se, like classical physics or quantum physics or all modern physics is about motion. Things are moving from here, ball is moving. No, it's not. Consciousness is moving. And how it is moving and what are the effects of that movement and what are the interaction of these modes, this is science. This is science, basically.
Right.
Very complex, but if you understand this, then every subject is understood. Okay. Right. Then the principles of change or motion, they are not unique to balls. Same principle applies to sense motion also. Senses are also moving out and in. The yogi withdraws the limb, his consciousness in, like the tortoise withdraws the limbs inwards.
Right.
So inward movement, outward movement, upward movement, downward movement, round and round movement. Okay.
Right.
Nothing is about material movement. So senses are moving like that. Mind is also moving like that. Outward, like Srimad Bhagavatam says, Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati yakinchana tatra sarvai gunai samasate suraha. Haro bhaktasya kuto mahat guna manorathenast dhavato bahi. Manorathenast dhavato bahi. On the chariot of the mind, he is running outward.
Yeah. Very nice.
Manorathenast dhavato bahi. Outward running. And Krishna says the yogi withdraws inward. So there is inward and outward. Similarly, there is upward and downward.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So everything is very nicely explained. It's just we have to understand. And all these things you can understand simply by meditation. Krishna consciousness is so nice. Nothing is, no philosophy and all is required. Okay.
Yeah.
Nothing is required. Just chant Hare Krishna. If you perfect that thing, every book that has been written and every book that has not been written, every book that existed in the past and will exist in the future, you can understand that.
Right. So, having heard this discussion, this actually raises some questions in me, like the perception that we're talking a lot now. So, perception, it seems that there is some backdrop on which things are happening, the change is happening. Is that really the case, or
the backdrop is matter? Matter is space.
Okay.
Okay. Material energy is the space.
Right.
And the thing that is moving is the soul or the consciousness. Soul is actually not moving. The consciousness is moving.
Yes. So, do you really think that, this world, everything is comprehensible? I mean to say that, can there be something which is part of this world, but still, my perception cannot capture it, no matter whatever capacity, maybe even in the Sthita Prajna stage.
Perception may not be able to capture it, but at least in theory you can understand it. That's not impossible.
Okay.
Everything can be, see, in principle, everything can be understood. Okay. Everything can be experienced, everything can be reasoned. That we can guarantee in principle. Okay. That doesn't mean everybody will experience, let's say, for example, you say, where is hell? Oh, how do I believe in hell? Okay, so we will send you to hell and you will suffer there for 10,000 years. Is that okay for you? Just to experience what is hell? That nobody wants to do.
Right.
Right? If we send you to hell, like they say that, people who have led illicit sex life, they are made to embrace the molten iron body of the opposite sex, So, do you want to do that? No. Everybody wants to go to heaven. Right? So, whatever you can get for free, you don't want to get that. But to go to heaven, you have to perform austerities. That also we are not able to do. So the question is, can I get it? Yeah, you can get it. There is a path, there is a process. Right? If you really want to get that, you can get it. There is no doubt or question about that. The question is, do you want to get it and is it worth getting?
Yeah. So the issue is, if we talk about Western philosophy, so they are like particularly Kant. So he talks about things in themselves. I mean, something that is the essence is really not perceivable. It's already, I mean, out of our access. But I
It's
feel
all
that,
nonsense.
yeah.
There is nothing called thing in themselves.
Mm.
This material energy has been created for the soul.
Right.
So matter is for the soul, not thing in itself.
Mm. Right.
Okay.
Right.
But see, the thing is, you cannot understand these things from, Kant said this. All this is nonsense. Okay.
Mm.
Why they call it thing in themselves? You have to understand the reason why they called it thing in themselves. Because of this old Socratic problem that is coming on for thousands of years, in which they gave the allegory of the cave that whatever you are seeing is simply an appearance.
Exactly.
And you don't know what is the reality behind the appearance.
Mm-hmm.
But you cannot accept that there may be no reality. So let's say there is a reality.
Mm-hmm.
But simply you have some appearance of these things. Okay, you
Yeah.
have an appearance, but because of the problem of hallucination, right? You may be hallucinating, maybe you are dreaming.
Mm.
Okay, so because of those things, there they say that we have some appearance which may be different from reality.
Mm.
Okay, we also agree that we accept that there may be an hallucination. It may not be, real and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean it is something in itself. And why this thing in itself business arises? Because they have also conceived this world in terms of, oh, it is length and mass and momentum and speed and all these things.
Just the physical attributes.
Yes,
Mm.
quantitative attributes.
Mm.
Physical and all is just a word. Okay,
Yeah, quantitative, right.
quantitative attributes which you can measure using numbers.
Mm.
Let's make that very simple.
Mm.
Okay. And once, so they want to say that, oh, it may be hallucination. But if you say that it may be taste, touch, sounds, sight, smell, and things like that, and I may not have perceived it correctly, but there is a thing which is, you know, taste, touch, sounds. Then the question is, why does the world exist?
Exactly. Mm.
Right? Why does the whole world exist?
Mm.
And that question always involves the question of why the soul is in the world.
Mm.
Why the world exists? Because the soul fell into the world. Why did the soul fall? Because of, it had its, envious desires,
Mm.
or a feeling of enviousness, because of which it could not stand the presence, it could not live in the presence of greatness.
Mm.
Okay?
Here also, just to have a detour, what does that really fall of Jiva really mean? I mean, to me, it's a very kind of awkward. I mean, if a thing to really think or address or anything, I don't have a proper answer. Uh,
Oh,
what does that really fall means? I mean, it's certainly not a physical traversal from a.
no, it is not. It is simply change in focus of consciousness.
Yeah.
Change in focus of consciousness, in the same way that your consciousness is moving. If you have a plate of food in front of you, your consciousness is moving from taste to touch to smell to sound to sight. In the same way, it can momentarily move to Krishna Loka.
Mm.
In a moment, it can come to material Loka.
Mm. Right.
Soul is not moving. Soul is never fallen. This is also stated in many places. Only the consciousness is falling.
Yeah.
That consciousness is also controlled by something called prana, but it's a big topic and things like that. But basically, consciousness is fallen, or soul is not fallen. It is basically consciousness is contaminated.
Mm.
That contaminated thing is called the material world.
Right.
Okay.
So here, one thing. Yeah. Do you want to add? Continue?
No, no, you can
Yeah.
continue.
So one big puzzle I face is, when you talk about different kinds of classifications, categories. So we have a physical notion of a big thing containing small things. I think you also talk quite a lot about how the part relates to the whole.
Yeah, yeah.
So in that business, so all of science is really progressing, or whatever things have happened. Just this idea that uh, you go on reducing to find fundamental of so-called fundamental properties, fundamental objects, and then since this is part of a bigger system, so like that, you're physically really reducing things.
Because they are always studying the substance.
Yes.
Even see, you have to understand when Descartes created this mind-body duality, okay?
Mm.
He changed even the definition of substance.
Okay.
He called it res extensa. What is res extensa? It is something that has length.
Length spread over.
Right?
Mm.
So whenever you are studying matter, you are studying nothing but the property called length. It may be more dimensions of length and things like that, but basically called length. And what is length? It is this, this quantitative idea of big and small, in which 3 centimeters is small and 5 centimeters is big.
5 centimeter contains 3 centimeters.
5 centimeters contains 3 centimeters. They are not studying form. Okay. Now we go back and say that we will study. Now, when you do this kind of quantity study, okay, let's say you proceed along this quantity study. The first thing you will say, what is God? God is the one who created the whole world. Okay, let us say. So God must be bigger than the whole world.
Yeah.
Because if he created from himself, let us say, okay, let us say God created the world from himself, then he must be bigger than the whole world, because 3 centimeters has to be inside 5 centimeters.
Right.
So if the world is 3 centimeters, then God must be 5 centimeters. If the world is trillions of miles, then God must be slightly bigger than trillions of miles, at least slightly. Yeah. He cannot be equal to, or he cannot be at least smaller than this. He has to be bigger. Isn't it?
Yeah. But instead, Vedic literature talks about Paramatma form, which permeates everything.
No, Paramatma and all, don't go there. Just stick with the physical conception.
Okay. Yeah.
How it immediately leads to atheism. Okay, the moment you say God has to be bigger than the universe, okay, there is no personal God.
Pantheism.
Either you get God is, what you get is impersonalism, which is Brahman, which is, quantitatively infinite. It is that is why it is called, it is everywhere. Right. It is everywhere in the sense that it is space. Like space is everywhere. That space is the physical space that science conceives of. It is infinite. But that can never be a person. So you, like you said, pantheism, it's the same as, Brahman. So if there is God, okay, it's a big question. He can never be a person. That's the first thing. Second thing is, if you say it is something infinite, then why call it Brahman? Why call it consciousness? It can also be a quantum field.
Yeah.
It can simply be a complicated, structure of space and time. Because Einstein has already created mass out of curvature of space and time. Let us say we create a geometry in which there is more properties than curvature, or there is more than one type of curvature. Okay, so you can go on creating properties out of curvature of space. So there is nothing. So basically, this is the Einsteinian conception of God.
Spinoza type.
Spinoza, yeah, okay, whatever. But Einsteinian is a conception of God is this, that God is nothing but the space and time, the structure of space and time, the mathematical, this thing, form of this thing. but it is not not a personal conception of God. Why? Because God has to be bigger than this.
Mm.
Okay, this is directly follows from quantities.
Mm.
All right.
Right.
Now, what Christianity did? They said God created the world from nothing.
Ex nihilo. Okay.
Ex nihilo creation, right? Ex nihilo creation. So we are talking about Satkaryavad, which means the Karya is eternally present in the cause, which means the world is eternally present in the cause. And if you take a quantitative conception, then 5 centimeters has to be bigger than 3 centimeters, which means God has to be bigger than the world. Okay. So in Satkaryavad, then impersonalists, why they do this? They call it Asatkaryavad. The effect is not eternally present in the cause. And Christianity is nothing but Asatkaryavad. Ex
Right.
nihilo, it is worse than Asatkaryavad. Like it just popped out of nothing.
Right.
Okay. Now, where does Big Bang come from? It comes from Christianity, because they said the world comes out of nothing.
Right.
You understand? Christianity instituted this idea that the world popped out of nothing. God created the world from nothing. So let us say, let's remove God and keep nothing. Because anyway, if world can come out of nothing, then why is even God required to create the world from nothing? There is a question. Okay. You can say, oh, maybe God just created the mathematical laws God. So this is the modern idea of theism, which is compatible with ex nihilo doctrines, where they say God simply tuned the constants and the laws.
And became indifferent.
Yes. So what did God do? What is this is the Christian uh, uh, intelligent design argument. Okay.
Right.
God created the world from nothing, but that nothing was actually not truly nothing. It was still some mathematics. That mathematics involved some equations and constants. Like you have gm1 m2 by r square. So G is a constant, right? Or Q or electromagnetic or Boltzmann constant, and so on. There are 2 dozen constants. At least there are more than that, but I'm saying conservative estimate is two dozen. So God tuned these 2 dozen constants, which include gravitational constant, Coulomb's constant, Boltzmann constant, Planck's constant, so on and so forth, right? Cosmological constant, all these things he tuned all these things and gave equations, and that was the role of God. And scientists will say, yeah, okay, let God tune all the constants. I don't care, because all I have finally is mathematics and constants. So whether you say God tuned it or you say these are the laws, it hardly matters. God is totally irrelevant, and that is also compatible with Christianity, because God is separate from the world.
Exactly.
Okay. So all the atheism that you are seeing is a direct result of Christian doctrines. Why? Because they created this doctrine of Asatkaryavad, ex nihilo creation. So when we want to change that, we say the world came out of God, which means the world was eternally in God. Then you get impersonalism in the Advaita form, because again it's quantity world. Then you change it back to qualities. Okay. In that quality version, there is no substance. There is absolutely no substance. God is a form. Parts of God are also form. This world is also form. So it looks big for you. Okay, it looks millions of miles. That is that's not, doesn't matter. It's actually not big. This is the other thing. It is just like a mustard seed. This is described in Srimad Bhagavatam. All the universes are held upon the head of Sankarshan like mustard seeds, like just so many innumerable mustard seeds. Okay, so why does it look big for you? Because you are zooming in so much. You can go on zooming in, zooming in, zooming in. It can expand infinitely for you because you are zooming in.
So this vision of that the scriptures talk about, our Vedic scriptures. So this vision is certainly not a physical space as ordinarily we think of.
Yes, it is not physical space.
So,
it is not. It is never physical space. And this is what I have done through many of my books, like Time and Consciousness is a book where I try to describe how this physical conception of space is created through, succession or through three kinds of spaces which combine, and through interaction also. Right? You and I are, let's say, 18 inches apart right now.
Yeah.
Okay. We are 18 inches apart because of interaction. But when the call is disconnected, they will be 3,000 kilometers apart. Again, because of interaction, lack of interaction.
Right.
Okay. But if we are mentally similar, we'll still be mentally connected. If you are emotionally close, we'll be emotionally close.
That's the semantic space.
Yes. So there are many kinds of distances, not just this physical distance. And even this physical distance is not constant. By the interaction, the length contracts. Right? Or length elongates. So similarly, this is, Prabhupada said this many times. You can be you can be with Krishna in one moment. And he would say, I am always in Vrindavan, I am not here. You think I am here, I am not here. Why? Because he's interacting with Krishna and he's also interacting with you. Okay? Because there are two interactions. One is billions of miles away, other seems near. You think Prabhupada is close to you, he thinks he's close to Krishna. And objectively, these two things are billions of miles apart. So you can imagine how bent and convoluted the space is. Take 3 points, A, B, C. A is Krishna, B is Prabhupada, C is another disciple. Okay? A to B distance is small, B to C distance is small, A to C distance is huge. A to B distance is, let's say, 2 meters, B to C distance is 2 meters, A to C distance is 10,000 billion kilometers.
So this notion of distance in this semantic space, how do you really appreciate? I mean, this is one way, qualitative.
By experience. See, first of all, we have to see by experience. How did you come to modern science? Through ordinary experience. This is something philosophers of science have already done. They have, like Einstein always said, that science is nothing but the refinement of ordinary experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. How did they come to Hilbert space? They came from the idea that there can be multi-dimensional spaces. Okay. How did they achieve that? They generalized the concept. How did they generalize? You can never see more than 3 dimensions, but you can see by the mind. You can imagine multi-dimensional spaces.
Right.
Mind has the capacity to visualize multi-dimensional. Not everybody can do that. So you go to people trying to understand, let's understand 4-dimensional space, and they'll keep drawing cubes and this and that. They'll make videos. They can never explain what is 4-dimensional space. But the point is, don't try to see by the senses, try to see by the mind.
You talk about two kinds of empiricism.
Yeah. Mental empiricism. But even if you don't do that, I'm just giving pure physics example. How do you come to infinite dimensional space? Hilbert space is an infinite dimensional space. You are a physicist, right?
Yeah, I'm a physicist.
Yes. So Hilbert space is a infinite dimensional space. How did you come to infinite dimensional space? You came by pure mathematics because there is some visualization in your mind that you can visualize a space. Not everybody can do that. Some people, Hilbert was able to do that.
Right.
He was able to visualize. Doesn't matter if you and I can, do that or not.
Yeah, for most of the people, it is just the operational ways.
Yeah, but most of the people are not scientists. They are calculators.
Right.
A calculator is not a scientist, right? What most of the people are doing can today be or mostly be done by computers, which are sophisticated calculators.
Right.
And even Feynman is supposedly have to said, shut up and calculate regarding quantum mechanics, right? People are asking him fundamental questions about what is quantum mechanics. He
Yeah.
said, shut up and calculate.
Yeah.
Why he said that? Because he wants people to be calculators. Science had in the 60s, in the post-World War II scenario, they changed this conception of science because of American influence, because of American dominance in science, that science is not about the truth. And why that has happened is, again, you have to go back to Greek philosophy. These guys said, what is the definition of truth? Socrates could not give any definition. Okay. Then Plato said, truth is a form in another world. Okay, forget about that. Then Aristotle comes and says, maybe truth is geometrical truth. Okay, theorems, rationalism. Okay. Then comes, it goes on and on and on. Come 20th century, rationalism fails.
Yeah.
Because of Gödel's incompleteness, even in number theory. Then they have no foundation, right? Because you don't know what substance is. It is the thing in itself. It is the thing behind the appearances. All that you have is mathematics by which to understand, and that mathematics also is incomplete or inconsistent, one of these two. Mostly it is incomplete. So once it's incomplete, your rationalism is collapsed, then what do? Their American answer, which is pragmatical, which is called American pragmatism, their answer is, we don't care about the truth. Yeah, exactly. Whatever works is the truth.
Yeah.
Whatever works.
Third class definition of
that's the working definition, which means if it works today here, we call that the truth. Okay, or if you insist that it is the truth. But we want to purge the word truth from the vocabulary. There is no such thing as truth. Yeah. Okay, it is only if there is a heated debate, then we will word the word this is true and things like that. No. But the word truth has no meaning because it is metaphysics now. It is metaphysics in the same way that beauty is metaphysics, justice is metaphysics, morality is metaphysics. In the same way, truth is also metaphysics.
Yeah, that's why there is a gulf of difference between Western way of doing science and traditional Vedic science.
Yes. So because we are starting from the premise that there is truth and right and good, and these are the properties of the soul, and there is original soul, and everything is up. So we have changed the whole thing, right? So people are the issue that we have today is that people are trying to reconcile these two things. Oh, maybe there is a meeting point of science and religion. No, there is no meeting point. There is Vedic knowledge, which is scientific and religion. And then there is Christianity, which has led to modern science, which is neither religion nor science. Because if you take it from a scientific perspective, it is full of contradictions or incompleteness. Okay. Or even if you take it from a religious perspective, you get numerous kind of flaws like the problem of evil, whether God is good or evil, the problem of sin, there is no reincarnation, there is eternal hell and heaven. Why these things exist is because they're trying to solve one or the other problem, and they end up in that situation where you absolutely need nothing but faith in Christ.
Yeah. Right.
You just have faith in Christ and you will go to heaven. That's it. Right? That's the cornerstone bottom line of. But you contrast that to philosophy, that the kind of problems that we are talking about, sensation, perception, movement of consciousness up and down, inside and outside, meditation, direct experience, when there is no comparison. There is simply no comparison. When trying to compare and contrast one thing to the other, it's like, Kohinoor to some. Last time I used that word in the. It led to a big argument and fight.
Yeah.
But I'll not use that this time.
Yeah. That's true.
All right. Anything?
Yeah, maybe one last question. I can give a very brief answer. Maybe next time we can continue. So, more on meaning. Oftentimes we face people who say that. Vedic culture really didn't produce a proper philosophy or couldn't come up with an organized way of doing philosophy. It's just philosophy, theology combined together.
No.
But instead, Western culture, it has demarcation of this is ethics, this is metaphysics, like this. We have professors, big fellows. So, what would be your answer for that?
Whatever they call systematic way of studying is what I call fragmented thinking.
Okay.
Right? Whatever you call systematic way of thinking is nothing but you have divided things into dozens of departments.
Exactly.
Okay. And all these departments have a different theory, at least, different conception or picture of reality, at least one. Okay. So as many departments, as many different theories. And most of the time, each department has many sub-departments, which have many sub-theories. Take, for example, the physics department. Okay. There is, within physics, there'll be quantum physics sub-department, or, some people will be working on. Then there'll be a cosmology sub-group. Don't call the department, will be a subgroup.
Yeah, exactly. Even
then there'll be a solid
is a different section. Every individual professor,
yes,
very individual to him only.
Right. Then there'll be some solid state physics.
Yeah.
Okay. Then there'll be some materials group. Okay. So within these guys, quantum mechanics guys are doing something. Okay. They have one set of theories. Cosmology guys are doing general relativity, and they have a different set of theories. They are working on black hole problems and nova and whatever, all these problems. Solid state physics, they are working on plasmas and superconductivity, material sciences. So within a department, there are many subgroups. Within each group, there are many, and each of these guys has got many theories.
Exactly.
So these groups have got their own journals. Right? Within quantum physics, there will be dozens of journals.
Right.
And each of these journals will publish dozens and dozens of papers, which will all have different opinions. Okay, now you call that systematic. Okay. My systematic question to you is, when do you plan to reconcile all these contradictions?
Yeah, that's a vital question. What you are
right?
after?
When do you, because we are investing billions of dollars of taxpayer money into this. Students are investing millions of hours into getting their degrees and PhDs, and you are calling this knowledge. Right? But one department doesn't talk to the other department. People within one department don't talk to the other department. There is no even endeavor to reconcile most of the inconsistent theories. Even if you look at, for example, cosmology, simply if you take quantum gravity, okay, there are at least supposedly some 50 different theories of quantum gravity. One problem which has 50 different proposals, and nobody knows which one is true. Okay, and it is not 50 is not becoming 35 or 20 or 10 over time. It is becoming increasing.
Yeah, they say as we get more evidences,
But
it would narrow down.
trend generally shows it is increasing.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Right. Now the new problem of dark energy and dark matter has thrown such a spanner in the works.
Right.
That basic gravity, Newton's gravitational theory is in question right now. Okay, there are alternatives to Newton's gravity being proposed, so that we might have lesser problems with dark energy and dark matter. Okay, that's how serious. Which means, after 400 years of science, we are going back to the drawing board and saying, let's maybe try to do Newton's mechanics or whatever Newton was trying to solve in a different way, so that we don't have to face the problem in the current situation.
Right.
So you say I am converging, but you also see you are also going back to the drawing board in many ways.
That is true.
Right? So even if you have a plan, show us a plan of this systematic way of thinking when you plan to converge. And you show us when you have actually, at least in so many subjects, there has never ever been convergence. Like economics, you can take an example. People are still fighting about whether socialism is right or capitalism is right? People are still fighting about which form of democracy is right. Is it representative democracy, or is it, participant democracy? So in every field, there are no clear answers. Right? I'm not even talking about what is art and music and beauty and morality and justice and things like that. Simple objective problems of economy, society, and physics and cosmology. These things are also not clear. So anybody who says we are very systematic, yes, please, we appreciate all your system. Tell us when you are going to close, right? Because it is very easy to divide.
Right.
Okay, right. Very, very easy to divide. Very difficult to unite.
And Vedic system does that very perfect.
So we have every book, Bhagavad Gita will discuss the soul, the material energy, right? The process of yoga practice, 4 types of yoga practices, right? And it's a 2-3 hour conversation at battlefield that leads to the decision that we will do a battle. Now, can you show me any other example or any situation in which such a life and death situation is being made and philosophy is being discussed to make a life-death decision, and you arrive at a clear decision that results in the correct outcome?
Never heard in history.
Right?
Right.
Nobody. Right? So you take this example, you take it back to them. You can take it back to them and say, yeah, you think. Or you can take Srimad Bhagavatam, Parikshit Maharaj, he has been cursed to die. He dies in 7 days. What is it the man has to do in 7 days that will lead to perfection? You have deliberated for thousands of years. Tell us, what should I do for the next 7 days that will lead me to perfection? In 7 days, can you teach me everything?
Yeah, right. It's very specific to.
Yes.
Yeah, Vedic culture only. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time for 1.5 hours. Very patiently answered. And
no, we can have a discussion. You are only asking, what about the other people? They're all silent, or they are.
Yeah, some of you would like to ask anything. It's already late, but I took some questions they posted. So we circulated a Google form with our participants. So some of them filled some questions. I also added few. So I just expanded on that. So now also, if somebody has any particular question from this discussion, so they can unmute themselves or they can put on chat box also.
Yeah, so if you have more questions, don't worry, we can have more. You are planning to have this next week also?
Yeah, next weekend also.
Okay, we can have that, no problem.
Maybe if you are available, then maybe next to next also.
No problem, I can have this
Thank you so much.
conversation. I don't have an issue. But if you have questions, and but also, you know, for the interest, you know, for other people, read books.
Yeah. So
Anything that goes systematically, that will help you. If you read books, and it takes some time because we have been assimilated into a certain way of thinking. Maybe next time we will start with what has happened in the last, you know, couple of thousand years in India. You know, what has happened in the intellectual tradition, what Shankaracharya did, and what are the problems that he created, you know, and what he was trying to do, and the sequence of all these, and you know, what those problems have entailed for successive generations of acharyas. Shishtadvaita, Dvaita, Shuddhadvaita, Bheda, Bheda, Chinta, Bheda, Bheda. And so what are the issues that Shankaracharya created, and why we are still, you know, why the Vedic system has fragmented into so many parts? It was not that fragmentation, and at least one of the central things that I am trying to do is trying to bring that unity, or show that unity. Bring that unity is, I cannot claim, but at least I can show how unity is possible. Bringing the unity is, you know, a lot of people are required, but showing that, you know, the unity is, you know, I am trying to do through the books.
I just pasted the link, Shabda.co. Those of you who are interested, they can visit this site and can have books.
Yeah. On Shabda.co, there is a link. First link is manifesto. If you like, you can read that. It's a long document, and everything will begin from God and go all the way down to, you know, very, very minute details in science.
Yeah, thank you.
One question, Prabhuji, is that if we see the history of philosophy, can we say, because in Bhagavatam we see that during and prior to the Mahabharata period, even the Europe was under the Aryan civilization, as Prabhupada writes at many places. So is that the Western philosophy, the distortion of the Vedic philosophy over the period of 2,500 years?
It may be, there are, see, you know, this Greek philosophy, okay, whatever was going on. I have a book on this actually, you know, it's called Cosmic Theogony. Okay, it is the it's a discussion of one Abrahamic religion, but all types of religions and how they are connected to this trinity of Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu in this world. So you can read that book. That is one thing. But what was happening for the last, like say for example, Egyptians, okay, you have to understand Egyptian civilization is 4,000 years old. Greek civilization is 1,500 plus years old. Romans are only 2,000 years old. So Greeks were doing sun worship. Okay, their pharaoh is supposedly, and this type of thing spread from Egyptians to the rest of Europe. And essentially, what is going on is demigod worship. Okay, so they talk about, there are so many comparisons in Greek mythology is the word these guys use. I don't want to use the word mythology, but there is no better word of, but system of gods, let's say, right? Greeks, Romans, Egyptians, Babylonian, they had the same, nearly the same system of gods. Okay, so they were doing this, demigod worship. And from that, in the basic principle of demigod worship, Krishna describes in Bhagavad Gita, which he says, you do something for them, they do something for you. In this way, both of you live in harmony. Right? So you perform, demigod worship, you do some yajna for them, and they will give you rains and good soil and, nice weather and all these things. And you live, both of you live peacefully like this. So this was the system of things going on. And this was called, or this is actually a contractual religion. Okay. The contract is, I do this for you and you do this for me. This is a contract. It's called a covenant in all Abrahamic religions, in Judaism, in Christianity, and within sects within Christianity. The basic word is covenant. The covenant, we covenant that I will do this for you and you will do this for me. Okay. This covenant business started because this was all demigod worship was going on, and all these demigod worship were very, very similar to what was going on in the Vedic society. So in that sense, okay, this European pagan, whatever they call the pagan religions or they call the mythologies, they were taken to a very large extent from the Vedic system. Okay. And to some extent they were modified, they were mixed up and things like that. But a lot of, like, for example, there is Dionysus, and people say that is Lord Shiva. Okay. And or sometimes they call him the Holy Ghost, or there is there's Cupid, and all these things are there. So they had a system of demigods, and this is essentially what is going on now. Because of these demigods, there were so many of these demigods, these lands are fragmented, right? Each smaller sect or tribe would worship some demigod, and these guys would fight with each other. And they would say, my God is stronger, your God weaker. Just like two children fight, they say, my daddy bigger man, your daddy smaller man. Okay, so this is how tribes were fighting with each other, and they were citing different daddies, and this was causing the fragmentation of Roman Empire, and therefore they adopted this thing that we call Christianity today. It has very, very little to do with Jesus Christ, but anyway, they brought in Jesus Christ as a figurehead who delivers salvation if you just believe in him. And there are four so-called canonical gospels in the beginning which don't agree with each other.
And Prabhuji, what about the Genesis of the Old Testament they talk about?
We'll not go there. We'll not go into everything because I cannot answer that historical perspective. But what I can tell you overall is that what Romans did is they kept the pagan philosophical system, and they just changed the covenant from many demigods to one God, which means even with God, you have a contract, you have a covenant. Right, so there is a Catholic covenant, there is a Judaic covenant, there's a Catholic covenant, and this is a Protestant covenant. Okay, and these covenants are different; they are all contracts. Okay, and the fact of the matter is, God never enters, at least in the Vedic philosophical conception, God never enters into a covenant or contract with anybody else. Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja. Give up everything and surrender to me. Manmana bhava madhvakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Always think of me, meditate on me. There is no concept of covenant where I do this for you if you do this for me.
That is true for the demigods. Is it so?
That is true for demigods. Okay. So Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and within sects within Christianity, they have all followed this covenant system, which is because they were doing this pagan worship earlier, and they simply transformed this pagan worship into a monotheistic God. But philosophically and under the hood, it is still pagan. Right?
It was really wonderful, sir, to have this discussion, really enlightening to all of us, I would say. Thank you.